Welcome to the Spurs Roundtable, powered by Project Spurs. I am your host, Jeff Garcia. And, well, it's been quite some time, so why don't we just dive right into this? And besides, look at these new digs. I mean, this shirt is gorgeous now. But, of course, I'm joined alongside Project Spurs' own Chelsea Torres and the new girl on staff, Mariah Medina. Welcome. Ladies, Spurs started off kind of rocky, you know, not looking Spurs-like since winning the NBA championship. They had a rough December, losing record in the Tim Duncan era. So the question is it time to hit the panic button, considering we're playing in a very competitive West? Chelsea?
I don't think it's time to hit the panic button. I've said this before, it's still kind of early in the season. You know, we've only gone about third way of the season. We still have a lot more to go. We're shorthanded, and not because we've been shorthanded, a lot of the guys have been playing a lot of minutes, such as Tim Duncan, playing an average 35 minutes per game in December. Not to mention, they had incredible tough matchups in December.
Prior to us recording this show, Mariah and you had kind of a very healthy debate about whether
healthy is an understatement.
Yeah, that is a very big understatement right there.
Very healthy.
So, Mariah, I know you're chomping at the bit to go right at Chelsea, so ladies, take it away.
I don't think that it's time to push the panic button. Like you said, I can agree with you in some regards. But if you look at it from the standpoint of health, Danny Green said it last night in his post-game interview that time equals confidence, and in return, confidence equals depth in the future. And so I think that this whole experience of having the lull of the season is going to be a good thing for the Spurs.
Well, I mean, what about the fact that, like Chelsea mentioned, this team has been hit by injuries? Don't you think that puts a little worry in you?
Again, I mean, worry would be drawn from other aspects other than injuries. And I say this only because you look at Corey Joseph and how his performance and how he's had to step up for his team.
Right.
It's giving many more men opportunities to step up for their team and, kind of prove themselves and gain the confidence and the respect of their team.
Right, you brought it up, that tough stretch. I mean, they were playing against the best of the best.
I mean, honestly, the West right now, given is the best in the league. The West is the best. And I think because of the hard-hitting teams such as the Grizzlies, the Rockets, especially with the new addition of Josh Smith, Mavs with Rajon Rondo now, those to me are some big threats. And because of that, I don't know if necessarily Spurs should be hitting the panic button, but I think with January having kind of more, I've looked at the schedule and it's a little bit of an easier matchup this month. But with Kawhi still out, I mean, luckily Patty Mills is back. I know Tony is just resting right now. But I think with Manu and Tim Duncan playing so many minutes in December, they're going to have to rest a little bit more.
And the good thing about this is that, look, every West team has to play each other. The Spurs are not going to be the only team that have to go through this gauntlet that they just went through. The good news is they got it early in the season. So you're looking at teams like you mentioned, the Memphis, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Rockets, the Mavs. They're going to have to do exactly what the Spurs did down their stretch. So if there's any silver lining in this gauntlet they just went through, what would it be?
It'd be definitely that the rest of the season isn't going to be that difficult. I mean, God bless them.
Yeah.
That and then health, of course. I mean, as long as we can stay healthy and as long as the guys can come back within playoff time or even just the rodeo road trip, then we'll be fine.
Right.
I think the Spurs will be okay.
Yeah, but that leads to the question, are they still the team to beat? They are the defending champions. They're trying to do something they've never done, is repeat as the title holders. You mentioned the Warriors. There's also the Grizzlies, the Clippers, the Mavs, the Rockets, just the Western Conference. It's all it is. It's just the Western Conference. But are they still the team to beat?
I wouldn't say the team to beat. Rather, I would say the team to be. I think after last year's finals, they put on what was called, a basketball clinic for the rest of the NBA. They showed you how basketball should be played and how basketball, the fundamentals of it.
Right.
And so because of that, I don't think that they're the team to beat per se versus a team to be. And a lot of teams in the NBA have modeled both their offense and their defense after the Spurs.
Chelsea, I think you kind of disagree on that, don't you?
I do disagree. I mean, sure, everybody wants to be just like the Spurs. But the West is so deep right now, especially when you look at the rankings. Spurs are ranked, I believe, 7th right now in the West. And they just won the championship. So you have to look at all the teams that they're behind, such as the Warriors. Now, come playoff time, I don't think the Warriors are going to be that hard to beat. I feel like
Did you just call out the Warriors right now?
Yeah, well, I mean,
you just called them out, right? You just gave some locker room material right now. Thank you. Spurs fans, if we face the Warriors, you can blame Chelsea over here.
Listen to this, though. Listen to this. They do not have much of a defense. They are a perimeter shooting team. Almost every guy can shoot threes, which is great, but if you can shut down that perimeter offense, then I'm not really that worried about them. Where I'm worried is the Grizzlies. They have the big guys. I'm worried about Houston.
Yeah, not to mention Marc Gasol is playing like an MVP level right now.
He really is. And because of that, I mean, not only that, but you have the great shooters, and they're just an aggressive team. They're a team that put it out there every single time you play them.
Is there a team, Mariah, that Spurs fans, aside from maybe Memphis, that should be looking at right now?
I can't agree with any statement. I think that a lot of different teams are in rebuilding mode or about to go into rebuilding mode.
Wait, we're talking about the West now. The West and rebuilding mode. I mean, these teams are stacked. She just brought up that the Mavericks brought in Rajon Rondo. Probably the missing piece they needed to make that championship push.
I'm glad you brought up the Mavericks, though. I mean, last year with 49 wins, they barely qualified to make it into the playoffs. And in their matchup against the Spurs, they were probably their most difficult opponent.
Right.
They were the Spurs' hands down, the Spurs' most difficult opponent. And how can somebody that barely made the playoffs make a case for themselves?
Well, let's put it in perspective. The Mavericks were the only team that really tested the Spurs in last season's playoff push. They were probably a DeJuan Blair kick to Thiago Splitter's head away from possibly upsetting the Spurs in the first round. You add the fact that Rick Carlisle is known to really push the Spurs buttons. He's a great coach. You throw in Rondo, the confidence that they know they can beat this team should they meet in the first round, or let alone during the playoffs. And that doesn't even put a scare in you?
I might be alone in this sentiment, but I don't think that Rajon Rondo is a force to be feared.
Wow.
And
all right, so we're giving all these teams locker room material, okay? So go ahead, just say what the Mavericks are lacking.
He's on a downward trajectory. One guy can't be your entire team, and I've said it before that he's kind of the glue for great players, great play. But as an individual, he's not that guy.
Right.
He's not your.
We haven't talked about the Clippers. We haven't really talked about Houston. So do you want to give those teams some locker room material as well? I mean, go ahead, Chelsea. We're on a roll. Might as well.
If we're going to talk about it, I want to at least talk about Houston. I think, if anything, they are probably the biggest team to beat in the West, aside from maybe the Grizzlies. And I say that because of Harden. He leads the league in points right now, 27 points per game.
Well, when it comes to defense, we're winning championships.
He doesn't have any defense. He's nothing but offense, and we get that. But the fact that they have Josh Smith now, that just adds a whole other element to their team. Plus,
I'm laughing inside right now when you say Josh Smith and his shot selection.
I know. But then we have Dwight Howard for Houston, you know, and he always gets rebounds.
Right.
And I think just with that alone, just because of the personnel that they have on their team, they're going to be a bigger team to beat.
Well, here's food for thought. We're talking about the postseason already, and we're not even halfway through the season. That just tells you exactly how deep this Western Conference is. I mean, from 1 through 7. Let's put it this way. If you're the Warriors or the Clippers or Memphis, who has the #1 seed or the #2 seed, imagine your first-round opponent being either the Thunder or the Spurs. That is just how deep this Western Conference is. So when it comes right down to it then, with the Spurs kind of struggling right now, we're going to give you our New Year's resolutions. That's right. It's 2015. So what do the Spurs need to resolve in the new year if they want to go deep in the postseason or possibly get a top 4 seed? Chelsea.
Health, for sure. That should be #1. And I think with the Spurs, it's always #1 is health. Not only that, but I feel like there's been a lot more mistakes throughout some of the games, especially in December, such as free throws, turnovers.
Yeah.
But that's fundamentals. That's stuff that the Spurs can help over time. So I think as long as the Spurs can keep the health going and stay healthy, then they'll be fine.
Right.
Don't get mad at me.
Okay.
It's going to be as simple as this. Outscore your opponent every single time. That's something that they need to work on. Down the stretch, they show such lagging efforts. They show such a entitlement. I think Pop called it that.
Talk about closing out games.
You know, closing out games and just as simple as literally outscoring your opponent in the end.
Right. I think with this Spurs team, they got to get the highest seed possible. They've never really gone far lower than 4. Second round and they're out. So they're going to definitely need that home court advantage. I'm hoping for them to have a nice push, get a top 4 seed, and some rhythm once everybody comes back healthy. Well, those are our thoughts on the Spurs and how they're looking at in the new year, and if they still got what it takes to repeat. Of course, follow us at ProjectSpurs.com for everything Spurs, as well as News 4 San Antonio and, of course, Fox 29 San Antonio. But for Chelsea Torres and Mariah Medina, I am Jeff Garcia. Thanks again for watching this episode of the Spurs Roundtable.